Very chill episode of Snap In Podcast today. I think the only news that I really want to cover right now, because there's a lot that happened this week, is XDefiant shutting down, which I didn't get to properly react to because of some certain things that happened this week that you can refer back to in my YouTube. So there was a fairly big announcement that I released on socials and on YouTube, so you can refer back to that if you want to see. I currently cannot talk more about that, unfortunately, but I do want to talk about XDefiant shutting down because this is something that I definitely saw coming. Not saying that I wanted to see it coming, but something that I definitely expected. So if you remember, I actually did the preview for XDefiant when the first, I think, beta came out. Everyone got on. It was like a closed test. Everyone played. People seem to really like it, right? Here's the thing. People really liked XDefiant because it did the shooter genre fairly decently, right? It was fine. I wasn't going to say it's really good, but it was fine. The balancing obviously was going to be tinkered with after it launched. There was a lot that happens with live service games. I mean, you see people with like Fortnite changing things. You see Overwatch, you see Apex, Call of Duty, all that stuff. That's fine. I think the problem with XDefiant was that it didn't do anything new that people really wanted in an FPS game, and also it had to this game specifically had to contend with so many different titles in the genre. They wanted to do modes that were very Overwatch-esque, right? Like escorting the payload. They wanted to do just TDM and domination, which they got to compete with Call of Duty. And granted, yeah, it's a free-to-play game. But free-to-play doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a bigger player base or get players as a guarantee. So thinking about this news, it lasted 6 months, which is honestly a lot longer than I expected it to last. And that is not me trying to be rude or anything. Genuinely, I am shocked it lasted 6 months because ever since its full release, I have heard nothing about it. I've not seen anyone playing it. I've not seen anyone talking about it. The most I've seen are what are those sponsored posts on Twitter saying, hey, season 1 is out, blah, 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 that sort of thing. So I thought they were fine. I thought they were doing okay, but it is interesting that it's been 6 months already and I've not heard any sort of conversation around it until now. So looking at this article from Dexerto, people were speculating about player count and ongoing support, and support for XDefiant is being tapered off in the coming months, with refunds being offered to any players who purchased premium bundles in the last 30 days. So they're actually losing money for this as well. People with the game downloaded can continue playing, but people who want to download it can't. And Season 3 will roll out as planned, though no new content is prepared for the period after that. Ooh, you know what? For those who still have the game downloaded, this is probably a really good deal for them. You get to play, you get to earn whatever rewards you have and, enjoy Season 3. The people who are left on this must be the extremely dedicated XDefiant fans. Let's take a look at this tweet from, who is this? Mark Rubin. Oh, yes, executive producer. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Oh, wow, this is a huge post. Hold on. This is going to take a minute to read. Hello, XDefiant fans. I am unfortunately here to announce that XDefiant will be shutting down. Starting today, December 3rd, new downloads and player registrations will no longer be available. We will still release our Season 3 content in the near future, exact date TBD, and the servers will remain active until June 3rd, 2025. That's a long fucking time for that to exist. For those who purchased the Ultimate Founders Pack, you'll receive a full refund. Players who made any purchases within the last 30 days will also be fully refunded. Those refunds should happen automatically within 8 weeks of today, and you can find more details on our official website. A few years ago, Ubisoft and the SF dev team embarked on a bold adventure to develop a new arcade shooter called XDefiant. It was from the start an incredible challenge. Not only were we trying to shake up the genre by removing skill-based matchmaking while bringing back a more old-school arcade shooter experience, but we were also diving into the high-risk, high-reward realm of free-to-play. And for that, I want to applaud not only the dev team, but also Ubisoft leadership for taking that chance. Free-to-play in particular is a long journey. Many free-to-play games take a long time to find their footing and become profitable. It's a long journey that Ubisoft and the teams working on the game were prepared to make until very recently. But unfortunately, the journey became too much to sensibly continue. I am, of course, heartbroken to have to be writing this post. Yes, this game has been a personal passion of mine for years, and yes, I know that not all challenges lead to victory, but I want to recognize all the developers who are being affected by this closure. Each and every one of them is a real person with a real life separate from our own, and they have all put so much of their own passion into making this game. And I hope that they can be proud of what they did achieve. I know that I will always be proud and grateful to have worked with such a great team, a team that really punched above its weight class. And what they achieved is truly remarkable. The early response from players when XDefiant launched was amazing. We broke internal records for the fastest game to surpass 5 million users, and in the end, we had over 15 million players play our game. That is something to be extremely proud of, especially considering how tough the genre is. So thank you all to all the developers who put their passion into making this game. If there's one thing I hope we can all take away from this experience, it's the importance of open, honest communication between developers and players. This player-first mentality, along with respectful, non-toxic conversations between developers and players, has been one of the standout differences that makes XDefiant so special. From my very first post about XDefiant, this was the vision I wanted to champion, and I hope it leaves a positive mark on how the game industry treats its players and communities. Almost done. To our players, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I want to express my deepest gratitude for the incredible community that has grown around XDefiant. Your passion, creativity, and dedication have inspired us every step of the way. With the utmost of love and respect, Mark. So, let me see if I remember correctly. Yes. With the announcement of XDefiant basically not being worked on anymore, on December 5th, Ubisoft published a press release saying that the San Francisco office, their studio, is going to be closing, which is very unfortunate. This move will lead to 143 employees being laid off. So this really sucks because we actually IGN used to work at their office. Their original office in San Francisco was right next to the Ubisoft's office, which is very cool. So every time I would go from work to the BART stop, I would always see other people wearing like Ubisoft jackets or backpacks walking back. So it feels like a really big end of an era, and that really sucks. Yeah, so it's their studio that is shutting down. Their business office is still remaining in a separate location. So that's really tough. And it feels like this industry just cannot get enough of cutting costs. Yeah, it makes me really sad that this is closing as well. I mean, I don't know. It feels like it's been there for so long. It's almost part of the San Francisco building structures. Like I don't know. There's just so much that's just been dwindling in the space, especially in the city too, which really sucks. So one thing that I want to go back to about what Mark said here, where is it? He said free-to-play in particular is a long journey. Many free-to-play games take a long time to find their footing and become profitable. I 100% agree with this. I also think that they launched at a time where there wasn't a demand for another FPS game like this, unfortunately. And I think I've mentioned this quite a few times. I think leadership at Ubisoft just likes to chase a lot of trends. We saw that with Hyperscape, if you remember that. I think that was my second review. I don't remember. But it was the lowest scored review I've given it because it just wasn't good. Here's the thing. Even with XDefiant and Hyperscape, they both had bones of something that could be really good. But unfortunately, it just couldn't get there because I don't know if they had the right support for it. So yeah, free-to-play taking a while to actually get solidified with their player base. It takes a while. It does seem like they did have a pretty decent player base at the end still. Obviously, it wasn't enough to keep the servers up and continue support for the game, but it does seem like they did find a niche audience. If you remember, Ubisoft also does Rainbow Six Siege, which is still doing great. I mean, that's probably their most profitable multiplayer game since they do have seasons that do come and go. So they're capable of doing free-to-play. And it feels like Rainbow Six Siege came kind of as a surprise, and it was really good because no one was looking for an FPS that did that sort of tactical shooter, right? And I'm really glad that that has stuck around. I also want to go back to when Mark said, not only were we trying to shake the genre by removing skill-based matchmaking while bringing back a more old-school arcade shooter experience, they were going into free-to-play. Here's the thing. I don't think people understand this. I know that some people don't want skill-based matchmaking because they don't like playing against other people with their same skills. They just want to play with people who are lower skills, who they might be able to like just run across into and then, just absolutely win. It's not fair to those players because then you also experience the thing of getting stuck with lobbies with people who are incredibly way better than you and you just have a really bad time. Skill-based matchmaking is there for the player. And as much as people like to whine and moan about it, it's still there to better your experience because I guarantee you if they got rid of skill-based matchmaking, like it's not good. They didn't have skill-based matchmaking and the amount of people that didn't like XDefiant was pretty high. I mean, you don't want to constantly get slaughtered because there's no real give and take with like maybe they have a formula of, oh, if you win so many rounds, then we'll put you in a higher thing. But that's still skill-based matchmaking, dude. Like, you don't understand. Skill-based matchmaking is there for you. Now, sometimes can it be tuned a little bit too much? Yeah, of course. Can it be tuned a little less? Yeah. There are always issues with the way that it's balanced. So finding that sweet spot is pretty difficult, And I totally get that. But I think that being their touting point, because I guarantee you leadership saw that was one of the big top searches with Call of Duty, Apex Legends, Overwatch, right? Skill-based matchmaking. And they were like, oh, you know what? We're not going to do that. That might be the big draw. And I think it may have been a big draw initially, but it's definitely not enough to keep this multiplayer game alive and with a really good player base. Because again, if you're not enjoying the game, why would you continue playing it, especially if it's free to play? And there's an abundance of free to play games currently. Oh, wow. Okay, so this is nice. Any player who purchased the Ultimate Founders Pack, which is the most expensive cosmetic pack at launch, which was $99 US dollars, will be issued a full refund. Yeah, I actually did not realize that was the price of the Ultimate Founders Pack. Is there a visual on what the Founders Pack looked like? Okay. DedSec faction unlocked with all characters, preseason premium battle pass access. All 4 year one factions are unlocked as they become available. Exclusive character and weapon cosmetics, exclusive founders, player cards, 5,000 X coins. Oh my God, is that really what it was called? It was called X coins? Ugh, no. 20 weapons and battle pass XP boosts. Sure. To me, that is not enough to spend $70 in a free-to-play game, in my opinion. And this is coming from someone who has spent a ton of money in Apex Legends. I don't want to say how much, but this is coming from someone who has spent way too much money in free-to-play games, okay? I believe in supporting the developers through purchasing the cosmetics and everything. That's fine. That pack specifically doesn't seem to offer anything that justifies $70 to me. Yeah, so this shutting down in summer next year is very interesting. I think they're doing their player base solid by keeping it on for months after this announcement. But yeah, I don't know. I think for me, having previewed XDefiant, as soon as I played it, even though I played the early iteration where it was a mess, it did not know what it wanted to be. And I was like, this is going to fail immediately within a week, not even within like days of it launching. Then they took it back offline and I hadn't heard about it for another year or two. And then they came out with the preview that I participated in. And I was like, oh shit, they actually listened to the audience, which I will commend them for. They actually did listen to the audience and the players, and they took all that feedback and they took it seriously. And they did turn it into a good FPS game. It's fine. It's standard. But yeah, again, like I said before, the issue was that it just didn't do anything outstanding. It didn't do anything to really make it stand out from the other shooters in the genre that came out this year. I mean, here's the thing. Yes, it was supposed to be like its own Ubisoft verse game, right? Taking characters from different Ubisoft titles that people were familiar with and putting them in the game, which if you like all the Ubisoft games, I think that's cool. But that is also kind of taking from a niche audience, right? We don't have any connections. Say we don't play all of those Ubisoft games. We don't have any connections to those characters. We don't feel really inclined to feel connected. And so there's not one faction that we're like, oh my God, we really want to play as them. So that's one issue. But also, I don't think it had enough flash. It didn't have enough of its own personality aside from having Ubisoft characters that made it stand out from anything else. Also, I don't know about anyone else who played, but I always felt like the servers were never on my side and the servers were always lagging. It was awful. Like I could not get to connect without stuttering, and there were just a lot of desync issues. Yeah, it's unfortunate because, again, XDefiant is a fine game. If you wanted to play something and you and your group of friends wanted something that you could play, it could have been that. But unfortunately, there are things like Call of Duty. There are things like Overwatch 2, which is now free to play. Apex Legends, free to play. Fortnite, free to play, which now has an insane amount of game modes. So it just could not compete with the modern shooter genre. And even something with it always felt a little bit, I don't know, the movement never felt super comprehensive. I think that's the right term. Yeah, I don't know. It just had some disconnected feel to it for me personally that I couldn't completely get into. And it's funny, I was actually looking at my old write-up for the preview. And like, I did praise them for having done a really good job with listening back to players and actually taking into account what people wanted. I talked about there needing to be heavy tuning and balance adjustments with the factions and their abilities because they were all, oh my god, some of them were really OP. Like I remember in that preview, the healers could just spam their healing ability and you wouldn't die. You were unkillable, which is fucking insane. Oh my god! And I'm saying the exact same thing that I'm saying now, back when this came out. But it's not enough for a multiplayer game to be fun these days. There are only so many hours in the day, so not every game can survive and thrive. So when I asked about how this game would be supported as a live service game, since I experienced a hefty laundry list of weapons, abilities, and mechanics that needed to be rebalanced, Sada explained that they built XDefiant to have a flexible code, which would make future changes and updates easier to implement. So that was an important question that I asked them because I was like, hey, Apex Legends currently cannot change a lot of what they have because if they were to say change the way that the audio sounds, right? Like with changing footsteps, that could potentially break the game because the code is built in a really weird way that moving one thing could potentially break like a whole other thing. So that is what I asked about that. And I'm glad they did think about that. And hopefully they do bring that to like future games that they work on that could potentially be multiplayer. And I genuinely hope that the people who worked on this game can get to use the information that they learned on XDefiant to future projects, but I don't know. With 143 people being laid off from the San Francisco Ubisoft office, it seems really tough. Hopefully they are all able to find jobs and land on their feet because this industry has been absolutely brutal this year and last year. It's been awful. As much as I identify and feel like I wanted to play XDefiant as an FPS player, I still feel bad that they're shutting down. Like it sucks. It sucks. I'm never happy that a game gets shut down, right? I think it's just one of those things of like, when I first had the preview, people were like, oh my god, like wait. There's always that side of people who are like, oh my god, why does she think it's not good? Like, oh, she's so picky. She just wants to complain about stuff. And it's like, no, I'm coming from a place of experience because I have seen a lot of FPS games come and fail. Right? Like we've seen all the shit that they've tried to do. So it just sucks that sometimes when you were able to, especially with having worked in the industry for as long as I have with like reviewing and like previewing FPSs, it kind of sucks that once you play a game, you're like, oh, I can see how long you have left to live. And it sucks. So this is unfortunate news, but again, like I said, hopefully all the developers are able to find work. Yeah, because like keeping up with a live service game is really difficult. I genuinely, again, I keep saying this, but I'm really glad that I'm not on a team that has to do that because I would not be able to.